Let's begin.
They say she's in the class 18.
So, my name is Susie Gray.
They say she's in the class 18.
And I'm here today to talk about Macbeth. Macbeth was one of my favorite texts of mine that I read when I was in high school. And it was a favorite for a number of reasons, which we'll get into. But first I would like to read the infamous dagger scene in Act 2, Scene 1, when Macbeth perceives a dagger hanging in the air, just as he's trying to decide if he's going to murder his king so that he can take the throne. And there's a lot of supernatural aspects to it. It's very spooky, but we'll get into it. Allow me to begin. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from a heat oppressive brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes, now o'er the one half world. Nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse. The curtains sleep, witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace. With Tarquin's ravishing strides, towards his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm-set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabouts, and take the present horror from the time, which now suits with it. While I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds, too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. He heard a bell just then. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. So I love this scene. I think it's so spooky. I think it's terrifying. It really puts you in this scene of horror, really. There are so many words that he uses, like fatal vision, dagger, gouts of blood, bloody business, talking about a wolf, talking about moving like a ghost, talking about going to kill the king. Because by the end of this soliloquy, he's decided that he's going to kill the king. He's not so sure at the beginning, but by the end he's sure. And I just really like how Macbeth is a very visual text. Even though the play is best perceived as a play, and rather than it being read to you, it's something that while being read, you can really understand what's going on there, and you can picture the imagery of the horror of it all, and the dagger with the blood on it. And something that's so cool about the whole play, Macbeth, really, is that you're unsure if Macbeth is going mad or if there's something really supernatural going on, because those witches predicted from the beginning that all of this was going to happen, but also their prediction is what led Macbeth to deciding that he was going to kill the king so he could become the king, because the witches told him he would become king one day. And it's the whole idea of something being there when it isn't. And that's what senses are, is with your eyes closed, you're able to hear things and smell them and feel them, and you can see them as well when your eyes are open. And it's this idea that your senses play tricks on you. And you can see this dagger that's in front of you, but you can't feel it. And he even says here, he says, "Are thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight?" He wants to know if he'll be able to pick up the knife, because the knife is facing towards him with the handle facing out, waiting for him to pick it up. But he reaches out to pick it up and he can't feel anything. And he's starting to question, are you really here? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from a heat oppressed brain? He's starting to wonder, am I going a little crazy? Have I spent too much time in the sun? Do I need to be fanned before I faint? Although I would wager to say that none of us have gone mad before.
They say she's in the class 18.
I think that we can all kind of relate to this feeling of being so certain that something's there, but it's actually not. And maybe it's the middle of the night and you see the chair in the corner with clothes stacked on top of it. And something about the way that it's sitting just really looks like a person standing in the corner of your room. And the hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you're all of a sudden hearing movement from that corner, and you're staring at it so strongly, trying to figure out if it's actually a person, and you're so convinced it's a person. That's exactly what Macbeth is going through here, except that it's not just a shadow, he can really see it. And so we're left wondering if this is supernatural or if this is something happening in his brain.
They say she's in the class 18.
So not only is Macbeth starting to be convinced that this is something supernatural, there's really something going on here, but we as the audience start to become convinced, especially because of how persuasive Macbeth is in his madness or superstition. He says, "Nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse. The curtained sleep witchcraft celebrates." So he is starting to imply the death of all that is natural. And now we've moved into the world of supernatural.
I call this one the blue steel.
Yeah, that's great.
Macbeth also begins to use personification in a way that signifies sort of a haze between what's real and what's not, what's possible and what's impossible. He, well, first of all, the knife is marshaling him in the direction that he was going, telling him that he needs to go and kill Duncan and ascend his way to the throne. Girl, what? You don't need to eat that pillow. You really don't. In fact, I'd prefer if you didn't. Weird. Something else that really adds to the build of this scene is the use of enjambment. So enjambment is stopping a thought mid-thought and then starting it again on the next line. And Shakespeare uses very short lines. So he, when he does this, the sense that it lends is that one idea is kind of feeding the other. Macbeth is feeding into his own madness, and he's encouraging himself, even as he stops himself and he's like, this is impossible. It can't be. There's not a dagger right in front of me, and it doesn't have blood on it. How could that be? But he's continuing to feed into this illusion, and he's really starting to believe it. And I think it's so cool that just in the span of a single scene, you can see the madness really take hold in him, and that supernatural superstition really come alive, or, you know, for lack of a better word. Something that I really love about this scene is that just from reading this scene alone, you are already in that very spooky kind of atmosphere. You know that something nefarious is going on. You know that there's some supernatural aspect to it all. Something completely, well, some believe separate from nature. Some believe this is just a part of nature that has yet to be explained. But there's something outside of our human control that's going on. And something about that is like as scary as it is thrilling. And that's something that I really love about Macbeth in general. Now, Macbeth goes on to do even more nefarious things than killing the king, but you're just going to have to read the play to find out. Before we head out, Balthazar, I know that you used to be friends with Shakespeare. Do you have anything you'd like to say? You're too much. You're too much. Okay. We'll talk about this later. Thank you so much. This has been Susie Gray with Macbeth. Good night.